We have today with us Sir Mr. Sumit Dutt Majumder. Sir has been ex-chairman of CVDT and
CBC.
CVEC, and Sir has written erstwhile a book on GST Explained for the Common Man, which has been published in 2018. And due to the recent developments in the political scenario of our country, Sir has came up with another book this year, Article 370, Explained for the Common Man. So, first of all, sir, I would like to thank you from the people of India for bringing us the details of Article 370, which you have explained in such a lucid language. So, thanks, Satan, sir, and many congratulations on writing this book for us. So, Sir has obliged to answer a few questions which the readers may be interested in asking us. So, like we can begin our interview. So, first of all, sir, I would like to ask you why this book is important, a book on Article 370, which is such a sensitive issue at this point of time. What made you write about this book?
Well, the credit for writing this book should go to the publishers, Niyogi Books, particularly their editorial director, Mr. N.K. Bhattacharya, who asked me whether I can write a book on Article 370 in the same style and same language as I had written in last year. Last year means 2018, on GST Explained for Common Man. Now, so far as GST is concerned, well, yes, I mean, when I was in service, I was member Central Excise and then chairman Central Board of Excise and Customs. So I knew GST. I had dealt with the GST at the initial stage, and not initial, at the time when it was very actively being considered, and we thought that by 2011 or 12 we would have GST. But that was a different situation because some states didn't agree on GST at that time. But then Finance Minister Mr. Pranab Mukherjee went on full stream, and he made us make even the our thing on. He made us write the GST Constitution Amendment Bill and all those things. So I'm conversant with it, and then. After I retired in 2011, I was reappointed as ombudsman for 2 more years, and finally I retired in 2014. But I have been writing articles on GST. I have been writing the articles on GST, and then after retirement, I brought out a book on GST, and that time it was not being very hotly talked about. But then I thought that it is the future. So I had written actually 3 books on GST when Mr. Bhattacharya had asked me to write a book on GST in 2018. And he said his idea was that the books that I had written was for professionals. So perhaps a need is there for the common man, because common man even they cannot understand the nuances and complexities of GST. So keeping that in mind, while my book, last book on GST, before I wrote this Explained for Common Man series book, that was about 1,600 pages. So obviously this cannot be for the common man, and it was basically for the professionals. So this one I wrote, and it was I think about 400 pages, and explained in a very simple way what are GST and all. And Niyogi published it in top priority. And I was informed that this book was shortlisted for an award by Tata Literary Award. Shortlisted, I mean, and that's more than enough for me. And it was being accepted well by the readers. Perhaps that prompted Mr. Bhattacharya to ask me whether, with Article 370 again, he felt that it is people are talking about it without understanding the nuances, what is there and all, and that the common man should know about it. So that any discussion is there on Article 370, it must be an informed one. Without knowing the details, shooting off is not good for the country.
Yes, sir.
So with that, but readily I didn't agree because I knew Article 370 only to the extent that the common man knows from reading newspapers.
Yes.
Maybe I will have little more depth in it because I was interested in Kashmir matters. My one of my good friends and batchmate in Foreign Service, Ambassador Rajiv Dugra, had written a book called Where Borders Bleed. It's about Indo-Pakistan, and Kashmir was a prominent thing in the book. So from that onwards, I had some interest in Kashmir. So, but then not sufficient to write a book on Article 370. But then I told Mr. Bhattacharya that give me 1 or 2 days, let me think over it. He said, fine. Then I discussed with my son. My son is also a journalist, and he said that you should accept this challenge, and it is needed. And then I decided to write. And first thing that I did was to collect books. Anyway.
So, sir, the next question I'd like to know is, were there any specific challenges while writing this book? Like, what are because this is such a complex issue, many political scenarios, many facts that affect the history and even the emotions of the people. They are all very much into this issue. So, what are those problems you have faced while writing this book?
Well, the first challenge was, of course, to get myself informed. Then only I can help people to get informed. So for that purpose, I was very fortunate that I am in Chittaranjan Park, and the Chittaranjan Memorial Society has got a wonderful library. It's a goldmine for books. So and the Secretary General, Mr. Jayanta Roy Choudhury, actually the gentleman who was the other day in the author's corner,
Yes, sir.
that panel discussion, he was moderating.
Yes.
He was a former chief of the Telegraph in Delhi, and very senior journalist. So he helped, and he was the general secretary of that organization. And I got about 8 books, selected them, brought home. And my my son, being a journalist himself, so he also had some books. He gave me, particularly one Ramchandra Guha, marvelous of a book, that India after Gandhi.
Yes, sir.
So there are 3-4 chapters are there. And like that, and my friend's book is also as I mentioned, Rajiv Dugra's. And like that, with all these things together, I started reading. When I started reading, as I was proceeding, it took a little time, but then history is not unknown to me. Although I am a student of physics, I started my career as a lecturer in physics.
Yes, sir.
But then, you see, in my civil service exam, I had European history as one of the subjects, both in the lower and the higher. So history, and in my family, my youngest sister is also a historian, is there in my blood. My mother was a history teacher. She wrote a book on history also for the children. So it was not difficult for me to read about the history. But one thing I realized, that I would write it in such a way, I will explain everything, but I will not give my final views. The reason is, I thought that I am not experienced and expert enough to give views. But I was understanding the subject, I should be able to explain it to the people. Since I started as a lecturer in physics, so I knew how to explain complex things. So that was in my mind, that I have to explain the things in complex way. So what I did is that those are the challenges I had faced. And so accordingly, I proceeded. And one thing came in front of me very clearly is the Kurukshetra youth, the fight in the Kauravas and Pandavas. There you will recall Bhagavad Gita. What is happening is that King Dhritarashtra was blind, so he was not able to see what is happening in the fight. And there Sanjay was explaining everything. Every para starts with Sanjay Uvacho, means Sanjay says. So I thought that I will try to take that role. I will explain the things, and if I am able to, empower the common man with the knowledge of 370, my job is done. After that, they will take their views. I am not asking people to take the views, agree to this way or that way. So for that purpose, I've given the views of both the sides. And then I've left it to and I've culled out 16 issues. And those 16 issues, I've left it like that because, let's see, now in the Supreme Court it is there.
Yes. So I personally will be looking forward to reading that book of yours, that more memoir of yours, sir. And thank you for giving us and the viewers time from your hectic schedule and discussing the lunacies of Article 370. And again, thank you. Thanks again.
My pleasure, and that I could express myself, whatever the questions you asked, I hope
Yes.
I could explain. But any further clarification there, later also you can contact me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want people to read it. And as that day in the panel discussion, one of the distinguished panelists, Mr. Umair Ahmed,
Yes.
and even Madam Nishtha Gautam, and of course our former High Commissioner to Pakistan and India, and an author. He's a, as you know, Mr. Raghavan, TCA Raghavan, has written fantastic books, Neighbor Next Door, about Pakistan. Now the latest book is the History Men. So all this is, but all of them, and Mr. Moderator, Mr. Roy Choudhury, Janta Roy Choudhury, all of them had said one thing to the people when they finally said that this book is a book for the common man, and it is what I told you, that is for empowering the being. And you may have different views. You are entitled to your views, but you have your views after reading this book. Read it, it has been, Mr. Umair started, and others also said the same
Yes,
thing.
sir.
So that is very important, people to read. That's why I've kept it very
Concise. It is
concise,
quite concise.
absolutely
Yes.
concise. I made a, in our IS exam in a lighter way, we used to do huge, do précis of this passage and this passage. I think that learning helped here.
Yes.
Otherwise, there's 11 books made into one small piece here.
Yes, sir.
And the beautiful editing done by Niyogi Books.
Yes,
The lady who was there that day, Priyambada, she did the editing, of course, and overall Mr. Nirmal Kanti Bhattacharya and the support of Mr. Bikash De Niyogi, Mr. Tultul Niyogi, and Trisha, of course, always you know that how she has been active. So with all these things, let's see how it goes.
Yes, sir.
But on that will depend whether they ask me to write again or not.
Surely they will.
So but my memories memoirs will get a setback again. I'll get back to it after about 10-15 days again.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
start. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, sir.
Thank you very much.